What is up, guys? It's another web series of the podcast. I'm here with my boy Brett, my co-host, my compadre, my partner in crime, the person I'm gonna shebang with this thing with. So we're here to talk and give our initial review of the Joker, just like we had promised. We both went and watched the film. Now
Yeah.
it's time to really kind of talk about it, share our opinions on it, what we thought about it. Did we hate it? Did we like it?
Yep.
What do we think? Right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you watched the movie yesterday, right?
Yep.
Okay, okay,
Wife and I
okay.
went out last night.
Nice, nice.
Made it
Um,
happen.
so where do you want to start with this? Because there's so many routes. I feel like we can start at so many points in the movie where we can start kind of nitpicking at this and just really kind of giving our initial opinions about it, like what kind of message is really trying to send out to the audience, or what the whole story really kind of lined up to be in the end. Because I can just say from the get, the ending was more of a question mark for me, because after I came home and watched the movie, obviously there's other people that's watched it way before us, and they kind of had their own theories and just their own thoughts
Yeah.
on what the whole movie was really like, what the message was really coming from Arthur, like from a perspective of his mind, him seeing all this stuff happen, or him just it's something that never really took place, but it just took place in his mind instead of the real world. But
Yeah.
anyways, let's go back. We'll leave you guys with that. Think about that for a second. But let's jump back to the beginning. So, like I was telling you off camera, the one thing I felt right automatically from the beginning towards the middle and then all the way through the movie
Yeah.
was I felt sympathy for this guy. You feel
Mm.
sympathetic, and the reason why I say that right off the get is because I felt like you see just an ordinary dude. He wasn't ordinary. I would say that he had his obviously his mental health issues, or
Yeah.
he's dealt with some trauma. We learned in the movie in his childhood. And okay, so before we go dive into this anymore, I want to say for right now there will be spoilers in this review. So if you
This
do
whole
not want to
thing.
watch this, if you do not want to watch this, and you want to wait till you watch the movie, then I suggest not watching this video. But I bet there's a lot of people already that have already seen it, because
Yeah.
there's just so much hype around this movie. So just giving a fair warning. I know a lot of people kind of get ticked off about it. I truly understand. I'm one of those people. I just kind of stay away from those type of videos. But anyways,
Yeah.
spoiler alerts, okay? I just want to make that clear. But through the whole movie, I feel sympathetic for the guy, because in a way I felt like he was trying to do the right thing. And you can butt in whenever you
Yeah.
want, and speak whatever you
Dude,
want.
he had a good heart. You could see from the get-go his
Yeah,
heart
he did.
was
His
good.
his intentions were pure. He was trying to do the right thing, and I feel like in a way, society in general, just the environment he was in, it wasn't. They weren't taking him too lightly. And then the first type of action that you see that gives note of that is the part where he's doing his job, flipping the sign around, being a clown. And you have these kids taking the sign and they beat him up,
Yep.
and it's like, then we find out he's going to therapy for what he's dealing with, and he has what's it's like a laughing disorder, right? I'm
Yeah.
not, it's like a
There's a
laughing.
mental condition he's dealing with where he has no control about when he laughs.
Mhm.
It's just spontaneous laughter, and it's always at the worst moments.
Yeah,
And that tends to get him into trouble.
yeah. So, and then when one of the scenes where you can tell that he's really being, he's being the utmost honest about it and kind of letting people know, is the scene where he sees a little boy. He's making him laugh, and I think that scene right there, I could see, was really
Yeah.
important, because it just shows the purity in him. He was trying to make the little
Yes.
boy laugh. He was just trying to be funny, brighten up the
Yeah.
kid's day. He wasn't there to do anything negative, at least from what I saw. Like, how they dictate that they
I
they
got the
show
same
that,
thing.
right?
Yep. And
So
and you said purity. I
yeah,
said the same thing. I said that is just sheer innocence out of
yes.
Arthur Fleck at that
Yeah,
moment.
yeah. So then the mom obviously turns around and says, "Leave my son alone," and he kind of, gets kind of spoofed out, like, I wasn't really trying to do anything to your son. I was just trying to make him laugh. And he starts laughing, and that's when he pulls out his little medical card saying, "I have a laughing disorder," kind of letting people know that, it's something that I'm dealing with. Don't be alarmed. It's nothing that's going to be like of a threat to you or anything like that.
Yeah.
So I took that as kind of like, man, that must be pretty tough, And you think about, in reality now, in the real world, that there is people that's probably going through something like that, similar like that. Maybe not laughing, but they might have some type of disorder, and
Schizophrenia. I mean,
yeah,
you look at the homelessness going on, and
yeah,
many of those people that are homeless are suffering from some sort of mental illness that
yeah,
has put them out on the street.
yeah. So you start seeing these little like, okay, we're dealing with a person that's just dealing through a lot, going day by day struggles, and he's taking care of his mom, who later in the movie we find out she's actually dealing with some type of mental illness herself, but we don't find that out after the fact. So not to get too far ahead, but um, there's little pieces that play a role for him to really, in the end, turn into what we know as the Joker. Now, again, in a way, when I went home and started thinking about this, all kind of unravel everything. I don't know if I don't know. I don't think I mentioned anything to you besides the fact I felt sympathetic for the character, but
we tried to keep not
yes,
talking to each other until this moment,
yeah,
so we
just
haven't traded any notes.
exactly because I feel like we really want to give the most of our opinions and thoughts about this,
Yeah.
here share with everybody. But one thing that kind of made me realize, like, maybe a question kind of came to mind. I'm like, maybe he was more of a hero in his world than he was a villain. And the reason why I say that, take to the scene where those three gentlemen down in the subway, he's laughing because they're giving that woman trouble, but he's laughing out of like, it could be out of him getting some kind of type of reaction, like, hey, that's not cool in his head. He might be thinking, what you're doing is wrong. They're teasing and they're kind of like, giving that woman a hard time.
Yeah.
And poor guy, they start coming after him, like, son, what's so funny? What's so funny? And he's laughing hysterically, laughing, and he tries to pull out his little card, letting him know, hey, I had a laughing disorder. I don't know if you caught that, but he was trying to like let him know, hey, I have a laughing disorder, and they start beating him up. So he has a gun, right? And
Yeah, that's
you
when
try
the
to put
gun.
yourself, and I want to ask this to anybody: you put yourself in that position, okay? And hopefully this wouldn't happen to anybody, but put yourself in that position to where if you have somebody or a certain amount of people coming at you, and you're packing, you got some heat on you, whatever. Like, what is your first reaction going to be? You know what I'm saying? Like, think about this in the most realistic perspective. Like, he would have done what I felt a majority of people would have done. They would have protected themselves. And
Right,
what did he do?
but also though, how many people in society would allow someone with a mental illness to
Yeah,
pack a gun?
true.
You
That is
know?
true. Valid point. Valid point. And like I said, this is what I'm just going off based off the movie, just out of
Mhm.
like him
Yeah,
his reaction.
absolutely.
So he ends up killing two of them, right? Or all three of them,
No,
actually,
he
right?
killed all three of them.
So this is where I'm saying I feel like in a way you kind of look at him as a hero, and from a hero standpoint, I mean he took down three individuals that were that obviously were giving him shit,
Maybe in
and
his mind.
in his mind, that's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
in his mind. But in a way, it kind of made me think that, it kind of made me realize like that, they're obviously messing with him. Obviously he's get to that point where, nah, I'm done getting kicked around all the time. I'm done,
Right.
you guys just stepping over me and not really giving me enough time of day to really kind of feel any sympathy for me, and all this. And he's in the newspapers, or they start talking about this clown killing these three gentlemen in the subway, and he started taking, like, he starts seeing the reaction around him, like, this guy stood up for himself. That's kind of like the reaction it got out of every civilian there. I feel that's why they started putting that slogan, "We are all clowns," because they were maybe almost in the same realm of it as him. Like, he's just trying to get day by day. He was trying to get by, take care of his mom, go to work, try to just kind of contain himself. But, then you have this other part of society that's preventing you from doing that. So I kind of started seeing those little like hints and stuff. And then just throughout the movie, like I said, I mean, before I go any further, I mean, were you kind of seeing the
So,
similar things? Like,
well, so here's where I saw just pressure mounting up on
yeah,
Arthur. Just one thing after another. He couldn't do his job right. Like
yeah,
the sign when he got beat up by these teenagers, it was
yeah,
no fault of his own. He was just
yeah,
out there doing his job. But now all of a sudden he's being threatened to have get his job. To get fired, or
yeah,
he's going to have to pay for the sign with what little money he was making
yeah,
out of his own paycheck. And he's going, man, I was robbed there, and so you can slowly just see the fact that um, these pressures are just mounting up. So then eventually he does go, his friend ends up giving him a gun because he says, hey, man,
you
it's
protect
hard out
yourself.
there. You
Yeah.
need to protect yourself. And
Mhm.
his friend had good intentions, but I don't think his friend knew the issues that Arthur Fleck was
Yeah,
struggling with. And
exactly.
so he had the best of intentions. He's trying to help. He's doing what he
Yeah,
can, what he thinks is helping,
yeah,
but he ends up losing that gun at a children's hospital. It falls
yeah,
out of his leg, and or out of his clothing, out of his pant leg, and he gets fired.
Yeah.
So then that's the night that he ends up on the train with these three men, and so it's just like, so he gets fired, and I
Yeah.
remember, when he punched the time clock, and it was just, time to punch out,
Yeah.
and it was, and you could just see that, and how many people, like, and that's where you're seeing, you have that compassion for him. How many people do we know where when life starts to mount up on you, how many people do buckle under pressure? It's
Yeah.
just that most people don't turn to murder. Sadly, most people turn to hurting themselves.
Yeah.
But this is a situation that um, takes a different direction.
For sure.
So
For
for the
sure.
most part, we're good. But I think when he was killing those people, I think that was the first time in Arthur Fleck's life where he actually felt like he had control. He had
Hmm.
power. See, he was very skinny. A group of kids could beat him up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he went through life defeated his whole time. And finally, with that gun, he found the equalizer. He
Yeah.
found a way that he could now turn the tables on society.
For sure. Like it was time for him to kind of stand up for himself and really kind of stand up against anybody at
and
that point.
it's like a shark when they taste blood.
Yeah.
He finally got a taste of what it's like to be on top, to have power, and
Yeah.
he wanted more of it.
Yeah. And another reason why I want to say I felt so sympathetic for the guys because, or the character Arthur Fleck, was because in those scenes where initially at one point in the movie we thought it was real what he was seeing when the girl next door that he ran into the elevator
Yeah,
was
Sophie Dumont.
yeah, so he was she was showing him like kind of affection and showing him interest.
Yep.
But then we find out it was kind of all an illusion. But you take what you take from that is that he started having people actually being nice to him in general,
Yes.
right? And that's kind of like, dang, dude, like he has to see this in his mind and not really see it in reality where people were actually could be nice to this guy. But we do get somebody who was nice to him. I don't know if you remember in the movie, the little guy that he works with.
Yes.
Stepping a little forward more into the movie, moving forward a little bit forward in the movie was the guy that sold him the gun. Murdered him because he pretty much threw him under the bus about the job, saying like, I heard he bought I forgot what type of gun he was, but
38.
Yeah, 38, and he pretty much threw Arthur under the bus, and he just like, why would you do that? But he showed he showed I guess you want to say like he remembers like who was nice to him, or the one person that was nice to him or okay with him while he was working at Haha's. That's what it's called, Haha's, I think.
Yeah.
And he kills the gentleman that sold him the gun, and then the little I forgot the little guy's name.
I don't know his name either, but how brutal of a scene was that? Like,
oh, dude, I was like, whoa,
I couldn't believe it. That and
it was like
Robert
so
De Niro
realistic
one.
to where like the anger built up to that point where he just snapped, like he just like. Yep. Okay, you want to play this game? Okay, and he had those scissors in his hand, and you could just tell something was about to happen.
We jumped. My wife and I, we jumped in our seats when that happened. It was brutal.
You start seeing the gruesome part of how the Joker is. Like it starts really kind of taking development in that scene. Like those are one of the scenes where it just like, okay, this guy's at that point where, like you said, he got that taste of blood. He's going for more. You know what I'm saying? And the other guy was just in shock. He's like, "Oh, Arthur, what'd you do, man?" Like it's kind of like, why'd you do it? And in a way, it was kind of it was I don't want to come out, I guess this is me being weird thinking it was funny, but he was like, "It's okay, like you can leave, you can go, it's okay." And he's like, "You were the only person that was nice to me," and he kisses him. He's like, "I appreciate that," and he leaves.
So it's like no, the comedic one part of that though was where he had locked the door initially.
Oh yeah.
And then so now that he gave him permission to leave, right?
Yeah,
but the Joker, he's just exhausted from just murdering this man in his apartment.
Yeah.
And so he's just kind of laying there on the wall, just exhausted, thinking about everything. And then now, the little man, he couldn't reach the lock, the slide lock. And so he's like, "Can you help me out?" He's like, "Oh yeah, all right." Lets him out. He politely lets him out.
So he does remember the fact that, like I said, in his mind, in those certain scenes, we got a true explanation of that. That wasn't real. It was all in his head. like the TV host, he was imagining him being nice to him and saying that I wish I had a son like
Yeah,
you,
Franklin, Murray Franklin.
Murray Franklin.
Yep,
And
played by
it's
Robert De Niro.
yeah, it's one of those things where that again, that's why I felt sympathetic towards the character, because like he had to see this in his mind, because he never had like anybody really be genuinely nice to him in person. So it's
Yeah,
like you see those type of things, and it's like, man, dude, this is why I like this movie, because it really gave like true emotion, like real life examples, I guess you could say, real examples to where how human interaction can really be or affect somebody, especially for those people that really felt like they're not really social people, I guess you could say, right?
yeah.
So it tripped me out too when it came to and when it came to the truth that it wasn't really happening. It was all in his head, especially at that scene where he's in that woman's apartment and she's kind of freaked out, like, "What are you doing in my
Oh,
apartment? Are
yeah.
you Arthur Fleck from down the hall?" And he just said, "I just had a bad day," and he was just kind of like just beat down. And
Yep.
I believe that was the scene also too where, again, spoiler, he murdered his mother, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So and
No,
we want to go
that
into
wasn't
that.
the scene though.
That
Not
wasn't the
there,
scene.
was it? Uh, shoot, I don't know when that was. Was that the day that he murdered his mom?
I believe
Could have
so.
been.
'Cause
Yeah.
I
Okay, you're
think it
probably right.
was. Because he had found out. No, actually, it was before. That was before, because he had found out he was adopted. Now, that's an
Yeah.
important. That's also an
That
important
was when he
part.
read the letter. That was when he
Yes,
read the letter
the letter. The
that
letter.
she wrote to
Uh, uh,
Batman's dad,
Thomas Wayne.
Thomas Wayne.
Yeah. So yeah. So he reads the letter, and the mom's pretty much saying that he's adopted, and that Bruce Wayne and Thomas Wayne can be potentially his real dad, and Bruce Wayne could be his brother. Um,
Brother, yeah.
Come to find out, though, we learn in the movie that she's going through some type of dementia or some type of mental illness,
She
right?
suffered from like delusional
Yeah,
thoughts, and he was suffering from visions of grandeur, I think,
yeah,
and all these. Yeah, it was a lot. But I think that the thing where you're talking about how you don't know if what he sees is real, I think that's Todd Phillips' way of letting you know what it's kind of like to be in the mind of someone who's wrestling
yes,
with these issues of
hmm
mental condition, mental instability,
yeah,
mental illness, and so because it's so misunderstood and in society, it's so hard for people to relate to what they don't understand. So I think this
yeah.
was Todd Phillips' way of bringing us closer to the issue so that we can have sort of an inside peek on what it's
hmm
really like.
Yeah, yeah. Those scenes were. I like those scenes because it threw you off completely when we came to know that it wasn't real, and what he was seeing was just it was in his inner thoughts, and that's an important thing we want to point out when we find out that the possibility of Thomas Wayne and being his dad. Well, as the movie goes, or as we go into it further, he also finds out that he was actually adopted.
Yeah, he goes to
And
the psych ward or whatever, the
Arkham
state
Asylum.
hospital.
Arkham
Yeah, yeah,
Asylum, yeah. So he manages to get the papers and just everything about his mom's disorders and everything like that. And he finds out, sad enough, that he was adopted, but while he was adopted, he was actually really abused by the stepfather.
yes,
So now we
yes.
know why all this stuff started to happen. Now we know why he is the way he is, because he was physically abused. It just got to him mentally, and that's why he was the way he was in the movie.
Do
So
you do you think that that's when he finally snapped? Was
I
it
feel like that
that
was the turning
moment?
point. Yes, I feel like that was the turning point. That was like where I mean, he was probably lied to his whole life, to
Yeah,
thinking that this woman, it's your stepmom still at the end of the day, but it's not your actual birth mother. You know what I'm saying? So he was lied to the whole time, and I think that was the last straw. I think that was enough for him to make him snap. And unfortunately enough, in the movie, he ends up killing her. So, and he had like no, he didn't even think about it twice. I felt like the way I was looking at it was, he knew what he was gonna do, and he pretty much started. She was unconscious, and he pretty much started telling her, you know, like saying that he saw all the paperwork and all this stuff, and that he'd found out that everything that you've been telling me was a lie, and ends up killing her. And
yep.
where I feel like the birth started taking place of what would become of the
The
Joker.
death of Arthur Fleck
Fleck,
and the birth of the Joker.
yes, and it's that's why, like I said, this is a slow burning candle type movie, and
Yeah.
it goes into everything detail to detail to where and now you see why this person would become this iconic villain here down the road. And I applaud Todd Phillips and Joaquin Phoenix. He nailed that character
Oh,
to the T. I think his portrayal of the Joker was really well done, and
I
Todd
think that
Phillips
was
directing it,
Joaquin
awesome.
Phoenix's like best performance to date.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't watch a lot of Joaquin Phoenix. I'm not a fan, but this one right here, he did to this role what Heath Ledger did to the old Joker.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
and that's where I also
crazy.
another thing just want to put out too. Like it's not even about a comparison or anything like that, because I feel like we both came into these approaches like when they announced that Heath Ledger was going to be the Joker in The Dark Knight, people were kind of like skeptical about it, like, oh, I don't know if you could do it, you know, this and that. And I feel like Joaquin probably got the same reaction, you know, when he announced that he was going to do this movie. But both of them got really good reactions and people loved it.
Yeah.
So I kind
Oh,
of look at them where, to, you know, it's they both did one of the best, you know, impressions of what this character could be like in real life, right?
sure.
So it's, you know, going on and more in the movie, you know, he finally has to pretty much go on the show, and the Maury show. His name is Maury, right? I don't want to butcher that.
Maury Franklin.
Maury Franklin.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to get this right for the fans.
That's
You
life.
know? Damn, you got the dance down, dude. No, did you
I've been
study that
practicing.
tape, huh? No, but so you know, and the way the movie ended was pretty much and that one was one of those what is it, seat jumpers too. Because from what I
Oh, oh.
from when
I
I
knew it was going to happen. It was just messy.
yeah, so I honestly thought for some reason, because the way he was kind of practicing it out, like when he was in that scene where he was at his home, it felt like he was going to take himself out. That's
Oh,
how I
see,
felt it.
I think that's funny that you were groomed for that, right? That
Yeah,
you as a viewer, you'd be groomed for that. For some reason, I didn't feel like he was ready for that.
yeah,
I felt like he's on a roll here. He's
yeah,
not gonna off himself. Not yet.
yeah.
Not
So it when that scene happened, you know, he blows he blows his brains out pretty much in front
yeah.
of a live audience, in front
Knock
of the
knock.
yeah,
Yeah, it was
yeah.
crazy.
And you can just see like the anger he has, because he was just the way he was talking and the way he was looking at Maury is just like, okay, something's gonna go down. You know, this doesn't look good. Like this is gonna end well. Ends
Yeah.
up killing the guy, and that's where he just felt like, you know, he was just kind of relaxed, just kind of like in his zone, to where like, you know, I'm just gonna show people that I'm done. Like, because he was saying it in during the show that he was tired of being kicked over, and just like, if it's like, if you were to see me laying down on the road, nobody would even stop to check if I was okay. You
Yep.
just walk right over me, and it's like, it's facts, homie. Like that's facts right there. To think
And
like that's what Arthur was pretty much to society, like a
did
nobody. It was like
did
whatever.
you happen to see the distant look in his eyes when he was on the Maury Franklin show? When
Yeah,
the exchange is going on, and like Maury Franklin, he's just treating it like it's a big joke.
yeah,
He
still, yeah.
because what got him on the show was
It's stand
uh
up.
Arthur Fleck had went to a comedy club to
Yeah,
be do a stand up routine, and he just absolutely butchered it.
yeah,
He told the worst joke, and so the Maury Franklin show wanted to bring him on the show just to make fun of him, basically.
yeah,
And so then he shows up on the show with full Joker face makeup, and they're just like, "Whoa, what is this?" And
yeah,
he goes, "Hey, you're the one that gave me the name the Joker. I want you
yeah,
to bring me out on
uh,
stage by the name the Joker." So
yeah,
that's where he sealed his fate, basically.
yeah,
But he had that distant look that is very similar to when you see these mass shooters.
yeah,
It looked very eerily similar to like the mass shooter of the Aurora shooting at the Dark Knight premiere.
hmm,
And I think that's where so many people were triggered by this movie, was because Joaquin Phoenix really studied mental illness, and
Mhm.
he got the mannerisms down, that
Mhm.
distant look, that the thoughts, the thought process, and
Yeah.
the disconnect between rational and irrational.
Mhm.
It was crazy, and that scene was absolutely insane, and it was in front of everybody. He knew it was in front of everybody. He wanted it to be in front of everybody,
Yeah.
just like what you see in a lot of these mass shootings that we see today.
Yeah. Yeah, and it ends like to add on that, and also too like just the way he was telling them, while he was telling Mariah, this is enough, cut it, we're done with this, and he's like, oh, you think this is a big joke, don't you? This, you think, you said this is what you really think of me or whatever, and it's just like you get the feel of like the anger that's just bottled up so like for so long off
Yeah.
his meds, because obviously they cut him off his meds, and that's another
Yes.
thing I want to point out too. Like his therapy was no more, like they cut off his medication, so he was literally just extracted, not like contained anymore. He was just
Oh,
loose.
I
So
mean, of all the sickness that he would have to bring his journal into the social worker
yeah,
and explain what he's talking about, and it none of it made sense. But
yeah,
he one line that stuck out was, there were a couple of lines that stuck out in his journal. One was, "I hope my death makes more sense than my life,"
yeah,
and then the other one is, with mental illness, people expect you to look like you don't have it.
yeah. Huh.
And
Okay.
those were the observations he was capturing in his journal.
Yeah. I didn't get that on the second one. Interesting. Okay. The first
Yeah.
one I remember, that death one. Yeah, I do remember it,
Yep.
and it's but yeah, it's he pretty much then and there was kind of like the icing on the cake. We see the cops, arresting him, and he's smiling as he sees all the catastrophe going on outside in the city. Just because I feel like he was kind of like the voice for those certain people that were kind of in the same shoes as him. He got those people up in the uproar to where like they're like, enough's enough. They were looking at because also just another thing I want to point out. So Thomas Wayne was running for mayor, right?
Yeah.
So and I feel like the riots were happening because they were pretty much feeling like they weren't doing anything for them, right? That's kind of
Yep.
how I got it.
They were the common people were suffering. It was a bad economy. People were
Yeah,
just trying to make it, and that's where
yeah,
Sophie Dumond played it perfect. Where
yeah,
here she is, this single mom, and just trying, doing her best to make it through this gritty city, and
yeah,
you could see the character was just, she was worn out. You could see
yeah,
that the city was a rough place to be,
yeah,
and so even the most beautiful amongst them in that downtown scene, they were all just beat up,
yeah.
so it
So
wasn't easy.
yeah, oh for sure. So once he started seeing all these people, he got a reaction out of that. Like he was laughing at that. Like this is. I felt like he was taking credit for that in a way, and that's kind of how I mean. In the very end, when one of the best scenes in the movie, and I can say, was when the ambulance hits the car, and two gentlemen that were in the ambulance pull him out. They put him on top of the hood. He wakes up and he sees everybody around him, kind of like applauding him, like rooting for him in a way, right? And
Right.
and he stands up and he does that. This is where it solidified him. This is where Arthur is no more. You have the
Yeah.
Joker. He does that smile. He paints that with his own blood. He paints the iconic Joker smile,
Mm,
and that's where it's just like they're applauding. Like he finally got that standing ovation that he always wanted in comedy, just
yes.
for him doing stand up. But he got it as for him, being who he was and just kind of saying enough's enough in a way, like this is the real me. So that was like one of the most, like, it was kind of chilling at the same time, because like that was like, this
Yep.
is what we know as the Joker now,
Yep.
and it's where it gets really kind of, when I start questioning a lot more is at the end, where he's talking to a psychiatrist and he's laughing, and and she asks him, well, what are you laughing at? And he's like, it's a joke that you probably won't understand or you will never get. And then it kind of hit me, well, if he is sitting here, white room, just them two, like, how do we know everything that he said or everything that this movie portrayed was even real? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's when we kind of start asking ourselves, like, was this a real thing? Like a real,
I think he killed her because he
yeah.
walked out of
Oh, he did kill,
the
yeah, yeah,
room
yeah, yeah.
and then he was getting chased by the other one.
Yeah.
I think he escaped the asylum.
You think Escape the Asylum?
I think so.
Yeah. I mean, it would make sense that he would, because obviously, he runs into Batman down the road, this and that. But it's man, the way Todd Phillips did this was crazy, and that's why I think it's a good movie, because it gets you thinking about all these possible theories, like all these, like, oh, it happened because of this, or oh, it could happen because of that.
Yeah.
And he really nailed this movie really well, and like I said, I applaud him. There so far, I've been reading some articles that they're saying that there isn't any plans for any sequels. But what's interesting is that
Lies.
right? Warner Bros is gonna toss that check, like, all right, let's make another one. I mean, and money talks. In the day, I feel like he would probably be persuaded to make another one, but who knows? But as of now, I think he's pretty much set on, like, he doesn't want to make a sequel. But what's interesting is that Joaquin Phoenix actually said that he'd be down to do another one. So now it's kind of like in Todd's hands, where does he want to proceed with this to see if he can top this first one, or does he just want to say, I think we'll give him one good movie, and right after right into the sunset, write it off. So it's like, who knows at this point? But overall, I personally enjoyed the movie. I think a lot of people, if they look at it, if they go in there with the clear mind, not thinking that this is going to be like an action-packed, just action movie in general.
It's a character profile.
Yeah,
I mean, you're going there for a character profile.
Definitely, and I think people need to go into it with an open mind, and not really kind of like assume it's going to be a certain type of movie, because it's one of those that just kind of stands out on its own lane, and that's one thing where I think I enjoyed it mostly because it's a development of a character, and it really kind of just tells it's a true origin film. So I enjoyed it. I mean, you're telling me that you enjoyed it as well.
Oh, we loved it.
We got both. We both have different opinions on it, different views on it. But on some things we can agree that we kind of got little signs from it, like where, oh, okay, yeah, I got the same message as what you got when I was watching that scene.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man, I enjoyed it.
Before, I took some notes today, because I definitely wanted to come out double barrels blazing, because I thought when I watched this movie, for one, before I start, I wanted to ask you, was there anything in that movie that absolutely caught you by surprise, that you're like, whoa, listen, I've been watching Batman for years, and I've seen this relationship he's had with Joker.
Yeah.
This was kind of surprising. Was there anything in that movie that...
Anything surprising? Just the fact that, I'm looking at this from just the standalone movie-wise, not comics. 'Cause I read a little bit of the comics just to get a really in-depth look into really how they told the story of how the Joker was born. I can only say the thing that really kind of surprised me from this whole movie was the fact that they actually used what could be real life examples of, like, what could torment, what could twist someone's mind to really be that certain way, and it's like stuff that would make really sense to where this could happen,
Absolutely.
You could take those elements and really say, like, this could happen to anybody,
Absolutely.
So that's one thing off the bat that I could say really surprised me, that they didn't use anything where, like, he fell into a pool of chemicals, he climbed out, he got this purple hair, and he became the Joker. It was any of that. It was like real life stuff, and that's why I enjoy this movie. But other than that, I can't really pinpoint anything else that really kind of stood out to me, like, whoa, but other than what I just said. But I don't know, but what about you, man?
Dude, the scene. Okay, so there's the scene where Arthur Fleck, he's going to the Wayne household, and he sees little Bruce Wayne. Bruce is probably maybe 10 years old at this time, and he sees that same innocence, and he's talking to Bruce, and he's doing magic with his whatever. So that's the first interaction that you see with Arthur Fleck and Bruce Wayne. And Arthur, of course, he's in his 30s. Bruce Wayne is about 10 years old. So then he sees the Joker grab the bodyguard, because the bodyguard comes out and sees the stranger talking to Bruce Wayne, and he's coming out freaking out, like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And, that's when Arthur Fleck is like, hey, I'm here to see my dad. I'm here to see Thomas Wayne. And then now Bruce is kind of like, he's standing there, he's just observing, and then all of a sudden he sees Arthur Fleck grab this security guard through the gate the gate bars and pull
Yeah.
him in. So then he's scared, right? And he eventually lets him go and whatever. Then at the end, when after he had blasted De Niro's head off, and after he had been kind of brought out of the ambulance, well, no, he's still on the hood of the car, but Thomas Wayne, his wife, and little Bruce Wayne are walking down the alley, and then a man in a clown mask is that's where you see Thomas Wayne getting killed. And I said, oh, right there. So Bruce Wayne thinks that the Joker killed his, so he's blaming all of this stuff on the Joker, when really the Joker this was not his movement. This was a bunch of misguided people looking to jump on some wave so that they could galvanize together against the rich. And it just so happened to be in the situation that was presented that the clown was the wave they were going to ride. So now you can see early on that Bruce Wayne is blaming the Joker for the death
of his parents,
when he really had nothing to do. That wasn't his beef.
And it's crazy how that played out too. And that's one thing too. I really honestly forgot to point it out. Good looking on that one. But yeah, it was in a way to where he probably felt like the Joker influenced that type of movement, and for that happening, you know, his parents were obviously killed due to one of the many followers that he had or was a part of that movement, and you know, it took both parents out, and that was that, and that's how Bruce Wayne took the mantle of being the Dark Knight, you know, being Batman. So it's crazy. That the ending's crazy too, and I feel like they played it out really well on that part, because it would be kind of too obvious that, like, if the Joker did it, you know what I'm saying? Like if the Joker had killed him, I think it'd be too obvious. I wouldn't like that. It was
brilliant.
Yeah, I think the way that it was one of the guys from the ambulance that helped him out was one of the ones that killed both the parents. I think. I'm not sure if correct me if I'm wrong. If anybody comment on me,
I don't know.
Comment on the page and let me know if I'm wrong or if I'm right, whatever. But I want to say that it was one of the followers, one of the type of people that was in that movement. Killed both parents, and that's how you get what we know as Batman after that. You know, he wants to fight, you know, pretty much all the bad there is in Gotham, and I like the way they did that. I like the way they did that.
Yeah, that was it completely took me by surprise. I thought it was brilliant.
Yeah.
I said, man, that's and you could see that, you know, the scene, what you were talking about, what you referred to earlier when you thought that Arthur Fleck was going to off himself on the Maury Franklin show.
Yeah.
That was another one that, you know, was just brilliantly worked in. And anyway, and you, it's so funny because it had, like, if that were a comedy sketch, that bit would, like, that's exactly how a comedian would set up a bit.
Yeah.
Exactly like that. Like that would have been the punchline.
Yeah.
And so to see how a comedian can take a serious and dark role, but still use that sort of craft, that was pretty crazy, pretty artistic. But I want to jump in and kind of give you my perspective of it.
Yeah.
So my initial response was, I was really shocked at how dark the movie was. The movie was dark, but it was an outstanding performance by Joaquin Phoenix. And probably, like I said earlier, his best to date. But I also think that this movie, it was a masterpiece, in my opinion, but I think there was a double layered meaning to it. And what I mean by a double layered meaning is that this is Todd Phillips' character profile of one of the most iconic villains in comic book and movie history, right?
Yeah.
But it's also, the Joker is crafted at a time where and molded in such a way that it speaks directly to today's society. And, you know, it's talking about, like, your politicians where you're encouraged to blame the rich for your woes, you know, look at the easy scapegoat. And then Arthur Fleck resembles a very similar profile of many of the mass shooters that are gaining notoriety in today's mainstream media. That he's white. He's taking several types of pharmaceuticals to keep his mental condition under control. He's socially inept. he's someone that just society runs all over.
Yeah.
It displays the dismissiveness of most people when confronted with the needs to address mental illness in a meaningful and constructive way.
Yeah.
And if not dismissive, then it presents the lack of understanding and the lack of compassion that you saw on the bus when the mom was like, "Don't talk to my kid."
Yeah.
Right? You saw that. And so so then you think, well, why were so many people triggered?
Yeah.
Well, there were a lot of triggers in this movie. You could see that. And I'm going to get a little controversial. I know I am, but after reading multiple articles online about what people thought about the movie, it seemed that the ones that were most impacted by this movie are the ones that were most likely to be responsible for creating the Joker in real life. And it's these people that are writing these snarky articles about someone like a real life Arthur Fleck, and just constantly mocking and ridiculing him.
Yeah.
And then acting all shocked and surprised when all of a sudden the guy snaps, like, we can make fun of you as much as you want, but you're not allowed to snap. The ones that bully and torment people relentlessly, but when the person who is as most likely afflicted with a mental illness, they get labeled a monster. And so that's how this person, instead of being talked about and addressed as the person who was a victim their whole life, instead everything their whole life is just captured in that one moment, that snapping point.
Yeah.
They're a monster. Right? And the media has a lot to do with how the mentally ill are labeled in our society. So I said, okay, so who in society can these characters represent? And we'll start with Arthur Fleck. Obviously I said earlier, he represents the people that are constantly bullied, the mentally ill, who after finally just life event after life event, a failure after failure, he finally snaps. Can't take it anymore. He snaps. And, like in this movie, what you saw was he snapped and he ended up becoming a homicidal maniac. But in real life, what most people, when they snap, they usually resort to hurting themselves, killing themselves. And again, it's one of those things where suicide is just one of those topics that it's too taboo in today's culture. We don't talk about it. It's a sign of weakness. You're weak if you end up killing yourself, and you're a monster if you end up killing other people. But the people themselves are in so much pain. Penny Fleck, that's Arthur Fleck's mom.
Yep.
She's, she represents the mentally ill and unprepared mother. Oftentimes, she couldn't even protect her own child because she couldn't even take care of herself. And how many of those single moms are out there that just can't do it, can't make it, and end up, getting put all that pressure on themselves, right?
Yeah.
And then you look at the social worker that Arthur Fleck turned to. Clearly uncompassionate, didn't care, was just very like, I'm just here for a paycheck. I just want to clock in, clock out. And, just there for nothing. They're not really there to heal, to help, just basically there to write his prescriptions and call it good.
Pretty much. Yeah.
And, Sophie Dumond, I think what she represents is, like you were talking about how, he finally got, he was always pretending that he was on the Maury Franklin show. And, well, I think that she kind of represented his dream, the love, the affection and adoration that each person wants in life. All of us want that's some of the basic stuff that we want. And I think that's what her character represented for him, was all the things that he just wanted a normal life. He just wanted love. He just wanted acceptance, adoration, right? Yeah. And I think that in a sick way, that's what he eventually got in the end. Maury Franklin, I think that he represents the media and the entertainment industry that covers all these shootings caused by mentally ill people and label them monsters, or that glorify violence in their content, be it movies, music, or otherwise. they're the ones that are fully aware of their influence they have on culture, yet unwilling to accept responsibility when people act on their content.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that's ever going to change. I think that that's something that it's almost like a sense of entitlement that Hollywood and the media carry. It's just, well, if they're treating him the same way that society treats someone who kills themselves. Well,
Yeah.
they were weak. They just didn't fit in our society.
Yeah.
I think the studio audience on Maury Franklin's show represents the segment of society that stands behind Hollywood and mainstream media's agenda and participates in the continued mocking and ridicule of society's most vulnerable people. Take social media, for example.
Yeah.
It takes someone who has some sort of a disability or take just anything. I mean, just watch when an overweight model goes and tries to do something, and just watch the comments flow.
Yeah.
Why, that's what I think that the studio audience on Maury Franklin's show represented.
Mm.
The resistance, the misguided mass of people who look for the easiest person to blame, the scapegoat. Who can be the scapegoat? Who can we blame for everything going wrong in our lives?
Yeah.
Thomas Rain and the rich. I think that he represented the out of touch elites that ignore the plights of the common man and only address those problems when it affects their cozy lives. So you look at San Francisco, look at LA, look at Seattle, downtown Seattle. These are the money capitals of the West Coast. And yet look at how many homeless and mentally ill people are walking on those streets.
Yeah.
Have you seen the documentary Seattle's Dying?
I've been wanting to watch it. It's one of those ones where I just never get to. There's a lot of stuff that I've been wanting to watch. I just in my mind I just always forget to get to them. But I heard really good things about it.
I strongly recommend you, but everybody else watching that, watch Seattle's Dying, and it's a documentary on the homelessness, the homeless crisis, and the drug epidemic facing Seattle. Not just Seattle.
Yeah.
You're seeing it in Portland. You're seeing it in LA. You're seeing it in San Francisco. But here, it's funny though. We have all that money coming into these towns, right? But then you have all this homelessness, and it's even more of an insult when in San Francisco, which is Silicon Valley, where these techies are just making a joke of it by, you can download an app called the Crap app, where all you do is they're having such a huge problem in San Francisco that the homeless are just dropping their pants and taking a dump right on the sidewalk. And so then what they're saying is, hey, just download the Crap app, tell us where it is, and then we'll bring in some cleaners to clean it up. And it's so unacceptable. We are one of the best societies, and that is one of the best, richest towns that we have on the West Coast. And that's how we resort to taking care of the mentally ill.
That's crazy. Yeah.
It's horrendous. And so that's what I think Thomas Wayne and the rich represent, is that you have the elite in those communities that don't even care. It's like, we'll get to it.
Yeah.
It's not really our thing. And lastly, the Joker. The Joker represents the monster that society created and yet refuses to take any responsibility for.
Damn straight, man.
And then, it's just right at the end. I wish there was something we could have done. And yet when you watch this movie, you see there's a million things that we could have done.
Yep.
And I think that we all represent a body. Like if you look at all of us together, we represent a body, and each of us have different functions, right? And I think you have to ask yourself, are you part of the cancer that's killing the body, or are you part of the cure? Are you part of the healing mechanism that keeps the body functioning in a healthy way?
For sure.
And unfortunately in our society, there's a lot of the cancers amongst us. And the sad part about that is the cancers think that they're doing a job. Like if you look at cancer, someone who has cancer, that cancer is a living organism that thinks it's doing the right thing. It thinks it's doing what it's supposed to, but it's not.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. And so sometimes you just have to, you have to take care of that cancer. And that's why we have treatments for it. Well, we need to treat our the cancers in our society in a way that can keep the body of humans, of humankind, in a healthy and balanced way. And I thought that this movie just beautifully captured the human experience that we're facing, not just in America, because wherever this premiered, I think it was France. Was it France? They had a 7-minute standing ovation. It means that this is a worldwide message that we are seeing these issues not just in America, not just in Gotham City, but in the world. In the richest nations of the world are faced with these dilemmas. And how do we handle it?
Yeah.
And I feel like this is finally an attempt. There's this glimmer of hope in Hollywood. I've lost all hope in Hollywood because they continue to glorify all the worst of humankind. But this is a movie that gives hope to people, people like me that think, you know what, these people have so much money and they've just given up on their own brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
So I just thought it was a good way.
That's I think you hit every corner in this whole, like, what this movie kind of really represented and kind of really what type of story it wanted to tell, aside from being a Joker film or Joker origin story. Like I said, yeah, man, in the end, it's like, in a way, do we want to contribute to the problem or do we want to be a solution to the problem? It's that simple, you know what I'm saying? And it's really not that hard to contribute. It's just, be nice to one another, treat others with respect like you would want to be treated. Simple
compassion,
stuff like that.
Man.
Compassion,
just show some compassion to people.
So it's a simple message, but again, for some people, they could just care less about it and be like, whatever, it's kind of like a whatever, but it's right. You're right, man. You're right, and I agree 110% with everything that you were saying about what each character or group of people represented, and it's really, like I said, the way they just captured everything and kind of portrayed it on film was just top notch, man. And I can't do that no more. Sorry.
Oh yeah, that's yeah, I know. I did it earlier too. We're still learning, the woke media is getting us in tune with the hand gestures that we can no longer use.
Yeah. What does that stand for? Anyways, so starting on topic, what does that stand for?
So apparently, I don't want to do it now that it's but if you do that, the OK symbol, apparently there's a W and a P in there, meaning white power.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
So it started as a joke. It was a joke on like 4chan or whatever. I don't know what 4chan is, but it started off as a joke, but then people started taking it seriously. And then I think the Southern Poverty Law Center, whatever, they got involved and said that is now a hate gesture. It's a symbol of hate.
Wow.
And but I will say that it is something that I think people are taking seriously, because I have seen a pickup around our area that has a sticker of that hand gesture in their truck.
Well, whoever saw that, I didn't mean it in that way. I always saw that.
No,
it's okay. So anybody that gets offended,
you're not white. You do that all day.
I'm brown.
It's me. I'm not allowed to.
But right. back to our main topic again, man. I enjoyed the movie. I loved it. I recommend anybody that is kind of on the fence about it. Should I see it or should I not? Go and see it. Go with an open mind and really just take it for what it is. Like I said, even my co-host here said he enjoyed it, and you're really not I'm actually surprised that you went and saw it, because you're not really, like you were saying earlier, you're not a really big moviegoer. Like, you were just
I try not to give Hollywood any of my money.
Yeah.
But if I do give Hollywood my money, I'm very selective.
Yeah, for
on
sure.
Who gets it? So Todd Phillips.
Yeah.
You get my money.
Oh yeah, man.
Clint Eastwood, when Richard Jewell comes out, you will get my money.
Oh yeah, definitely. I will. I'm interested in seeing that too, man. Maybe we can go catch that and watch that and all that, and give a review on that too as well. I think that'll be a pretty interesting review and just topic to talk about. So but yeah, again, for everybody that's seen it, let us know what you think. What type of messages did you get from the movie? Any cool theories that you guys came up with on your own, thinking that maybe it was a different message trying to be related to being relayed to the audience? comment down below, subscribe, follow us. We're still trying to get on top, stay on top of these type of things, and just things that kind of catch our interest, or things of interest out there as we go on time to time. So yeah, it's
Yes,
again,
sir.
we really wanted to come forward and do this review, because we actually initially told you guys before in our previous episodes that we were going to do this, and we're true to our words. We try to stay on top of it. We're both are pretty fairly busy on our own agendas, but we want to keep this thing going and be consistent with putting up as much content as we can to really grow our audience, and for the people that are following us now, we appreciate it. Again,
Yes, thank you.
much appreciated. It's definitely
humbled.
Yeah, we are moving up as time goes by. So again, thank you, and thanks, Brett, for taking your time, man, to getting together on this and talking about it, and sharing our thoughts and opinions on this. And again,
fun.
Yeah, this is the Tip Touch podcast. Check us out, YouTube. Check me out on Mixer and MacPack. Yeah, find us here.
That's it.
At the time. Yeah.
Yes, sir. All right.
All right,
good. I love it, man. We'll catch you on the next one.
All right.